Hey everyone, welcome back to NRL Fantasy Analysis. In this video, we're going to be going through another overrated, underrated. We're going to be going through another 12 players, starting with Nathan Cleary. So for starters, he's the only person that's averaged over 70 last year, with McInnes and Haas not starting the year. McInnes being out for the year and Haas starting a little bit later. So really good chance that you're going to need him as your captain, unless you see someone that's valued slightly under these guys, like a Cook or these kind of players that you think might average closer to 70 this year. Then Cleary needs to be a man for captain. So he definitely is someone that is going to be properly rated. There's a bunch of guys that are saying that he might lose some value, and yes, he might lose some value if he scores a 63 the first game, for the first two games, for example. But you're locking in 63, like double 63. So just think about that when he gets 100 in round 3, and you don't have him in your team, and you've got one of the mid ranges that hits the 30 or 40. So this guy is really important for your side, and I'd personally be having him as your captain in your team. Our next player is going to be Big Angus Crichton. So if you look at his stats again, he's also someone that is extremely consistent. This is something that a lot of people forget about at the start of the season. Yeah, it's all well and good changing your team heaps now, but once the season starts, there's going to be a lot of times where your mind plays tricks on you in terms of going, someone, if it's an Angus Crichton, for example, if he hits a 40 in the first game, you're like, I've got to rage trade him. I've got to get rid of him, right? These type of players are very consistent across the season, and that's why we bring in these guns at the start, because you can set and forget them. These mid-rangers are going to be up and down. They're going to get a 30 one week, and you're going to want to trade them. They're going to get a 60 the next week, and you want to bring them in. So these types of guys are going to be really important in your squad, and I definitely see Crichton as someone that you can have in the middle or the edge position. With there being not a lot of clear-cut guys that are going to play 80 minutes in those positions, I feel like he is underrated at this stage. Moving on to our next player. Please hit like and subscribe, guys, if you're enjoying the channel. Look at this sexy guy, WAYDE Egan. Think he's slightly a model, or what? Those sleeve tattoos. But WAYDE Egan, I personally think he's slightly overvalued at this stage. Yes, there's a chance he gets to 80 minutes. We'll have to see what the bench makeup looks like, but he's not someone that's scored amazingly well when he gets big minutes. You look at someone like Jacob Little, and his PPM is at 0.9, so WAYDE Egan is a lot lower than that in the 0.6s, but he has to be getting 80 minutes if you want him to score well, and he's already at a fairly high price in the 400s, and I think that he's slightly overvalued at the moment, with a lot of people having him in their side. With Warriors, a side that's been very flaky in terms of their players and where they play in the past, there's a chance that he comes on and only gets 60 minutes, with someone like Tavanga taking some of his minutes, with them having such a big forward pack, and maybe there's not enough minutes for Tavanga. There's a chance that he won't score as well, and I think he's definitely overrated. All right, moving on to the next one. Andrew Mccullough. So he's got the Broncos jersey on, but he's moved over to the Dragons in place of McInnes, who's going to be out for the year. Looks like there's a great chance that he'll play the 80, and if he does, he's definitely undervalued at this stage. So an average of 54 last year, with an injury-filled game and a couple of interchange games at the Broncos. He scored 2 tries in that 6 or 7 games that he played, but averaged in the mid-60s. So he can be one of your elite tier guys if he stays on the park, but that's the same with everyone, right? So I'd say right now he's currently undervalued, with a lot of people going for Grant, who's already priced at 61 and doesn't have a lot of room to move. So Mccullough definitely undervalued and underrated at this stage. All right, the sexy Cam Murray. Here he is. Someone right now I think is actually properly rated. There's a bunch of guys that are really high on him, but yes, he's going to hit the lock role, but is he going to play 80 minutes? I don't think so. The types of people in that middle position that score really well, the guys like Mccullough have averaged 65 to 70 minutes in the past, and not sure if Murray's going to do that. If he does, if he gets up there averaging around 70 minutes, then I think he might have a little bit of room to move with a nice high PPM and a team that's going really well. So getting that roll forward allows him to really improve. But at this stage, he's properly rated, and being a mid and edge player, I think he's going to be a really good addition to anyone's squad. You're obviously going to think that he does play Origin, and will miss a couple of games in the middle of the year. But other than that, he's someone that I think is properly rated and definitely a good player for anyone's team. Right, move to Billy Kikau. Getting a lot of questions about Billy Kikau. I think he's clearly overrated. A lot of people that watch footy, yes, he's a great player and has a great salad, but this doesn't translate amazing to his fantasy scores. He's not playing 80 minutes like he did a couple of years ago, and a few years before that, when he first came onto the scene, he was obviously priced at a rookie and did amazingly well and scored tries, etc. But now that he's priced really high, I don't see him as being someone that's any good to anyone's side, especially playing close to 50 minutes in a pack that's really strong in the Panthers. So Billy Kikau is definitely overvalued and overrated in my thoughts, and he won't have any value into your team, being that he's not going to be a keeper. All right, the sexy RTS. Here he is, those big cannons. All right, let's talk about him. I think he is currently underrated, just slightly. The fact that the Warriors went fairly well last year, and he didn't have a lot of tries and try assists. He got the majority of points from his base stats and his couple hundred meters gain and his tackle bust. So I think there's a little bit of room to improve. We talk about guys like Luke Brooks in other videos, and he's a fair bit undervalued just for the fact that he had a really bad year. Warriors have a nice forward pack, so they'll be able to get on the back of that and hopefully score a lot more tries than he did last year. I think last year's the anomaly and not the consistency. So he's someone I think has probably 100k to move and is definitely a keeper, a top 5 sort of wing fullback in that spot. So I definitely say he's undervalued at this stage. Alrighty, we move on to Jairo, and he's coming in that mid value packs at 600k. There's a reason he's at 600k though. I think he's definitely overvalued at this stage. There's a lot of people thinking about bringing him in, but you look at what he did last year, and it's the same minutes that he's had for a while. His impact on the game wasn't as good as what he's had in previous years. I was someone that was very high on him when he sort of first came into league and started getting big minutes. He was someone that was breaking the line and getting a lot of tries and try assists there, and averaging closer to 60 in most games. And you see last year, it wasn't his averaging best. Maybe he was carrying a little bit of an injury or something like that, but he's coming into this season with an injury cloud as well. So he's someone that I think you should be avoiding at this stage, and working out what his role is going to be when he comes back, and possibly if he does well and he has a big minute role, then you can bring him in later in the season. But at this stage, I think he's definitely overvalued for anyone who's thinking of bringing him in. Alrighty, Adam Elliot, a little bit similar. So he's priced at a 47 average, and yes, he had an amazing bunch of games last year when he came into the side, and he definitely looked like he'd improved as a player. Right now, I think he's properly rated. I don't see him as being a keeper long term, but I do see him as possibly being average in the low 50s. So in our second row, for our top gun keepers, we're looking for 55 plus, and I just don't think he has a 55 in him. Good thing is he won't be playing Origin, so he'll only miss one game for you, but just something interesting to see there with him. Yeah, definitely someone who's properly rated at this stage. Not as much upside as some other guys we've spoken about on this channel. Alrighty, Josh Hodgson. Similar thing, comes in at a lower price tag this year at 500k. People are talking about the new rules for him. Are they going to improve his game? And you look at the stats from it, and a lot of these guys that it only improved their game by approximately 3 points. And how many times a game is Hodgson going to have a one-on-one strip, for example, or he's probably more chance of combining them both together in a really good tackle that would force an error, which would get him the 4 points, or maybe a one-on strip every 2 to 3 games. So I think people are valuing that too high, which I think makes him overrated at this stage. Even though there's probably a little bit of upside, his injury history is a bit of a worry, and he's someone that's a really good footy player but doesn't always translate to fantasy. So he's not going to be one of the top line guns by the end of the season. You're going to have to trade him on, so I think he's slightly overrated at this stage. Alrighty, Moses Leota. Very similar boat. I actually think he's going to be slightly overrated this year. When he was on the bench last year, he came on and had a lot of impact. So he's someone that did garner a decent amount of minutes with Zane Tedavano. Moving him into the starting side, which is what we think is going to happen, I don't think has too much upside. I think maybe there's a 5-point upside there with an extra 5 to 7 minutes, right, at a nice PPM. But I don't see him as someone that's going to turn into a keeper. I think he's going to play a similar role to what Taumau did. He averaged 42 minutes last year, and I see Leota averaging somewhere between 45 and 50 minutes. If he gets 50 minutes, as I said, there's between 5 and 7 point upside there, but if not, I see him playing a very similar role to last year. He played well off the bench. It's not like he didn't have the opportunity, and priced at 450, I don't see him as having the upside that people are thinking about, like some of these other guys, like an Andrew Davey might have. If they're playing 80 minutes on a regular basis, they're going to have that bigger score of 50 to 60, and then that lower score of 30 to 40, whereas Leota I feel like is going to be fairly similar the whole way and only a slight bit of upside. Alrighty, and here we go, the try scoring machine. Charlie's saying 6 tries in 2 games. Comes up this year at 450k, and I don't see a lot of upside. If he was to come in at close to basement price, I think that everyone will be picking him up just for the fact that he can score really well. But with him having very limited base stats, obviously in only the couple of games that he played, he might improve that, given the fact that they're used to having 2 wingers in Toto and Mansour that are really good at getting out of trouble. And I feel like for them to do really well this year, he's going to have to somehow incorporate that into his game as well, averaging a bit over 100 meters a game. But until we see that, I don't see him as being extremely valuable. Obviously, even with an average last year across 2 games of 60. But yeah, like you look at someone else like a Mansour or a Toto, if they were to get a 4 try game, they'd be getting 100 points at least. And for Staines to not get anywhere near that, I see him as being slightly overrated at this stage. But there you go, guys. That's the whole gamut there. I hope you really enjoyed that video, and I'll see you in the next one, guys. Have fun.